I'm not going to be in here. Um, I am not going to be in here for a really long time. It's already past midnight. Um, and I I just I just thought I'd do something here based on a based on whatever this is. My channel. Hello, I'm back from the dead. Or as some of you may have thought I was dead. I'm not. I'm still here. I'm still here. It's just easy. It's just really hard to come up with really great content. Um, it's harder now because I've been doing it for such a long time. 15 years in the making, maybe longer. Um, it's not. Um, that is the reality. I've been doing this since I was like in my 20s. Anyway, um, not going to be here for very long, but I don't. But I would like to announce my um, return here and talk a little bit about what makes my channel different from any other channel in YouTube that has a dark edge, because that's half of YouTube right there because that's half of YouTube right there in a nutshell. The darkness, the dark, the dark, the dark content or the content that has a dark edge to it. Me and how are y'all doing there? And me and my channel is surprisingly not different at all. But instead of instead of creating dark content, uh, I create I I create what I like to call reasonable content. Uh, that that goes beyond um, what YouTube might not be capable of, and in maybe some ways what YouTube is capable of. And so I challenge that a lot with a lot of like hope. So I challenge that a lot with like YouTube with with a lot of like live streams and different things, like breakdown to like Disney movies or whatever, that there has to be a dark edge in my. There is a dark edge in my channel, but it's not really like noticed because it's very because it's very there's a little here, there's a little there, but it's not in plain sight. It's not in plain sight. And really, what this thing is about here is me is about the content that I put together, and it's Duke, and it's not like dark, but it's not dark by definition. It it's dark because it's not actually child-proof material. You know, I keep a lock on my channel, but it's not like there is a lock on my channel, but it's not but it's not anywhere visible. Like it's barely even there. Yet it's there, and I do use it, and I don't use it because what I put in here is raw, filled. Like what I do in here is that I don't child proof anything. It's raw. It the intensity, the the intensity is rather like to help people see things, in not the alphabetical way. There's an alphabetical way to show who and what I am, and then there's, the honest way, which is what I hate, and then there's the honest, you know, non-alphabetical way, which is what I like better. To be honest with you, to be honest about who I am and what I'm like, and not holding anything back. You know, and then there's a lot of like darker themed things that I talked about in here, and still will. Uh, regarding like Down syndrome awareness, and surprisingly, those are the only dark things in here. You know, is the Down syndrome awareness things that I've done and will keep doing, and and my me and my connection to the higher ground of Black transgender women. You know, there is no middle ground. Like it, they have to be brought up too. Because it's the American melting pot of misunderstood, misrepresented people. And really, in and out of a nutshell, that's what I'm doing. I, I'm trying to take off the labels of people who have Down syndrome, or women who are Black and transgender. Like I'm trying to take out the label and go straight into the human analysis of what makes people like that, um, who they are. And I'm not a, that's a big bulk of the content that I create. And then there's other content that I create, which is like, even though it's not child proofed, even though it's not anywhere child proof, people of the younger youth can watch my stuff. Like you're not, like there's stuff in here for old guy, like there's stuff in here for geezers, really old people, middle-aged people, people who maybe are as young as 17, maybe 20, and that's really the base of where I'm I'm putting it all. The teenage mind, the old age mind, the middle age mind. You know, that's that's where I'm really putting my focus on who I'm reaching up to, on who I'm reaching out to, uh, in terms of content. You know, like what's what would pass for government, and what would pass for representatives of the Down syndrome, you know, the Down syndrome community, the Black transgender women community, um, and people of all, Caucasian and everything, or if you're just, or if you're dudes or freaks or whatever, this my channel is your channel, and I mean freak by definition, like, redneck, uh, redneck, freak, you know, like, this is your channel. This is the channel that I could that I go after, like, people of all Caucasians, people of all, gender and transgender, um, and freak, redneck, um, you know, any, any kind of like status, native status, uh, um, or just really cool guys that are standing around the park. Like like that's who my that's who I'm trying to reach out. Authority figures. Everybody. And even though there are some content in here that might, this is a channel that is not rooted from like the racist corner and stuff like that. I talk about race. Yeah, I talk about different things. I talk about race, and and rather surprisingly dark Down syndrome awareness videos because there's less because there's more to take in of what people don't realize about people with Down syndrome. What who they are um, under the shroud or under the cape of Down syndrome. And the same goes for women who are black transgender women or black and white transgender women, and that's really where my main focus audience is. To every Caucasian under the sun, rather than religious or like anything. Like my that's my main focus of people that because my what I'm trying to do is give wholesome entertainment. What I'm trying to do is give like the wholesome, uh, non cookie cutter. You know, nothing in here is cookie cutter material. Even though there's some of that in here. Wow, I'm hacking up a skunk. Um, I'm so like imagine if this channel had racist jokes in it, which it doesn't. It I'm not that kind of guy. Okay, I'm not, and I can explain why I'm not because I don't look at the world like that. It's what I talk about is really my worldview, and the things that maybe that I might have not come to terms with yet, and stuff that I already know and have learned over the years, and have created my own my own serum, I guess you could put it, of stuff that would help people to know what I'm like and to be entertained as well. Like a lot of breakdowns of movies and stuff. And when I get into the black women, um, the black transgender women, um, conversations regarding not too much government, because I realize people are afraid of the government, uh, but just a little, just a little, like where it would, where it would fit in here, and and um and like what passes for like being misrepresented and you know the smaller people being like people who either have a chip on the shoulder, uh, or people who have and really what I'm putting down is that uh, there's a bright side to my channel and a dark side to my channel, and it's all exposed. It's all exposed. I talk about everything but politics, because one, this is not a politics and racist channel. This is not a channel where I get to talk about my ex-girlfriends. This is not a channel that I talk about, uh, you know, praying over you and stuff like that. I don't talk about any of that because it's not what I do. I talk, I talk about things that actually matter, things that people would give a shit about, you know, like, and the things that I don't give a shit about because it's a childproof. It's not childproof in here. It's it's all coming. It is all coming out of me at the same time. It's like I'm bringing my own worldview into what I talk about. You know, like, and in a nutshell, that is very rare for a YouTube channel to be talking about because YouTube channel creators talk about because they don't want to talk about themselves. They talk about everything else but themselves, and it, and I and some of that might be good, but it's not very honest, you know. And I'm sort of like a younger channel, and I'm sort of a uh, maybe the youngest YouTube uh, oriented uh, you know guy in here, showing everything, talking about everything under the sun, from black transgender women heritage to my worldview, and and you know, and the things that Disney could do better, but aren't doing better. You know, stuff like that, stuff like that. You know, and of course I find ideas to entertain the masses. You know, you have to entertain, you have to entertain the masses because if you don't throw that in there, it's like you're leaving out a whole bunch of other ideas that need to come to the surface, you know, and and that and you know it's just you know the elephant in the closet has to come out of the closet, and that's that's this kind of channel, you know, where the elephant can be free, or if the elephant's not coming out of the closet, I will go in there myself and I will rip it out of there, you know, on certain things like why the government looks at people with Down syndrome like they're not really there, or looks at or why people are rather very foolish around um, their around other people that do have a chip on their shoulder, or are you know maybe their neighbors are black transgender women, and all they can see is that, and all they can see is the review mirror of themselves through black transgender women, and they're afraid to look at it, you know. And I'm sure, and I'm trying to show that too. Talk about that too, like where it's bad, where it's bad to, where it's foolish not to include black transgender women just because they're black and transgender. You know, like that's not a reason. Okay, that's not a reason to look at yourself and say that these people don't belong here. They don't. They do. They do belong here. It's just that you have. It's just that people have a poor understanding of people who have Down syndrome, and have a poor understanding about black transgender women, uh, black and white transgender, and they're terrified to look at their own reflection through these people, and so they just exclude them out. You know, so that's why I'm talking about that stuff. That's why it's coming to a rise with me that, hey, just a minute, these are people too. They're black and transgender. Okay, that's a, that's a, those are qualities. But I'm trying to talk about, like, those are qualities they have. But that's not but that's not all they represent. You know, they 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 represent the people. They just represent people in more of a more difficult way because they're people too, and and like this is a problem, right? Like there's always a problem when it comes to black and white transgender women, where they're perceived as ugly, and they're not. And I'm trying to give that side of the elephant, and I'm also trying to rep- bring the elephant in the closet out of the closet on that too. Like black transgender, black and white transgender women, or as I like to talk more about black transgender women, it's not because I'm trying to be like Al Gore. It's not that I'm trying to be like Al Gore and stuff. I'm not. I'm just merely addressing the elephant in the closet from the Down syndrome perspective, and the autism perspective, and the black transgender perspective of the women's side. That's what I'm doing. So when you think about it, that is dark stuff, but it's no darker than what are in other channels, which is just downright putrid dark. And you know I I do talk about God very rarely in here. Do I talk about God and what Jesus said? Very rarely do I do that because I don't want to scare people off that might be offended, of that might be easily offended by religion. So I don't really talk about that. But for like, but to give the picture of you know, but to give the all around principle of what goes into my channel is that I've got a rather large head. I have a rather large head, and instead of just a little coming out, it's all coming out. You know, and it's all filled with stuff like what whether it's Walt Disney breaking down and building back up, or black transgender women breaking down and building them back up, stuff like that. Stuff like that. It's My channel is really like a really fun channel that just happens to have a dark tone in here, because I don't do because I'm not you know I I am very daring. I am very daring when it comes to my channel and what I can put in here. You know, without getting too dark. I just you know I have my own dark, and I have my own edge of darkness in here, and it's about and it's really around and it's really and the dark edge is more seen around Down syndrome awareness, and you know I got to there. I got to there. Uh, I got to there, because there's a darker reality to what people have to go through, with their Down syndrome package or their black transgender package. Like there's a darker reality there, that that and I'm not saying that people with Down syndrome aren't special. Or the other way around. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the day-to-day baggage that people with Down syndrome have to face, or black transgender women have to face. They have their own baggage, and it's very unfair that they have to have that much baggage, and I'm really just trying to see what I can do to make the world a better place. From the transgender side of it to the whatever side of it. That's I guess that's my mission in here. If you want to call it a mission, to make the world a better place, make people think, about their day to day habits, and on top of it, you know, you know, That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about day-to-day habits that people have that they shouldn't have. Uh, Like, like, like I'm talking about everyday habits that people have and they don't even know that they have them. Or I'm talking about Down syndrome awareness, which is the darker stuff that I'm doing in here, and 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 uh, and and Black transgender women awareness, which is probably the darkest I'm ever going to get in here. Because all people have the right to speak up. I don't care if if they have gills and they represent fish. Like if they have a say, they should be able to come up and say it. And I'm representing that. I'm representing the failure that doesn't listen to these people, and I'm trying to make them listen. You know. So when you think about it, that's really my stake in all this. Hope, like people, like when I talk about stuff, I'm not just talking about Disney, and 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 the future ahead of Disney. I'm talking about all things. I'm talking about Disney. I'm talking about the future of Disney. I'm talking about um, the passing reign of people that had to live with their Down syndrome package. Uh, I'm talking about, I'm not just talking about Disney and the future of Disney. I'm talking about all things. I'm talking about Disney. I'm talking about uh, black transgender black transgender women rights. I'm talking about the rights of animals. I'm talking about the rights of people with Down syndrome, people who have more of a darker emotional baggage that they got to carry. And above all that, I'm I'm nearly using my channel as 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 like I'm nearly using my channel as a way to tell people a way of waking people up and you know and nearly having to smack them in the back of the head and say, "Hey, this is my this is my not smack not smack them in the back of the head, but just kind of like wake them up, to their everyday habits and the way they're putting down people or the way they're doing things that are very foolish and they don't even know that they're doing them because they're blindsided by these things. They're blindsided by religion. They're blindsided by anything that has got to do with human with the with the elephant in the closet. Which you know, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of walking around like I'm tired of walking around and almost having to tell people to wake the hell up because what they're doing, what people do in their own spare time is rather very blind. Is rather very what people do in their spare time are not very human traits, you know, like littering and accepting um, poison, rather it's mental or physical, and allowing themselves to deteriorate through their fears and their own misunderstanding of of what people have to go through, like people with Down syndrome, people who are black, and black transgender women have to go through what and like the government is a little bit in my channel, nearly to nearly to wake the government up, and the funny thing is that the government's never going to wake up, no matter how many times I tell them, the government's not going to wake up. Like I rarely talk about government, or anything like that. But I will definitely talk about government if I feel it would be the right type of content to say like the government is a failed mutation, and it really is for the most part. The government is a failed mutation, and what we thought we would, and what we thought was, you know, and what we thought was, the truth. It's not the truth. The government really doesn't want anything to do with you. You know, the government doesn't even want anything to do with people who are Down syndrome. You know, who are all just puppets to the government, and a little of that, I talk about in here, but it's not enough to say that I'm a full-fledged government person because I'm not. I'm barely, I'm barely a religious monk in here. I'm barely even a religious monk. I'm barely, I'm barely even a religious monk in here. You know, and I'm barely a religious monk, and I'm barely a religious monk in here. I just, you know, I'm just going with the flow. I'm creating content that everybody can relate to, and that's what I like doing. That that's what I want. I want I like to put together what I like to call reasonable content for reasonable people. You know, and and for the most part, people are reasonable. They just don't realize what they're doing is wrong. And in a lot of the content I create, I talk about that, of how wrong, the government is, like how wrong people are for thinking they can stand up on their own 2 feet when they've been taught to sit down and be quiet. You know, that's not that's not my world. That's not my world. That's not my world. That's not my worldview. My worldview is to not stop the system so much, but to get in the way of it. And break down everything we thought with what you thought you knew, what you thought the government was doing. The government ain't doing shit. You know, and you know, and that. Not that the government is the key figure in my channel. I just, my channel is a base of all of this. Like people acting very dinosaurish, and you know, I did say that out loud. You heard me right, and it's rather not fair. Like it's like the caveman days are back. The dinosaurs are back, but they're in human uniform. And in a lot of my content that I create, I talk about how maybe the dinosaurs didn't die off. I talk about th- things that people can relate to. Especially me. So and it's and it's important to raise suspicion in my channel. It's important to raise suspicion and raise eyebrows and be like, hey, maybe maybe we're not doing the right things, and he's bringing it to our attention that we're not doing the right things. We're doing the same things the dinosaurs did, and we're not there yet, and we're not there yet in realizing any of that. So he's coming into, like I'm coming in to be like, no, I'm coming in and I'm breaking down and I'm taking all of the levels of the brain, like whether it's manhood or whatever, that there has got to be one channel at least, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four, that talk about the things that do need to be expressed. You know, war, love, uh, coming together, being split apart, and all the different brain waves that make a guy or girl, and 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 and, uh, and create a serum of like all of the above, you know. And I said it was gonna, and I said it was gonna be long in here, and I'm being long in here, and I did say I did want to take long in here. But you're right. I don't think that it's way longer than this. But somebody needs to know that people need to know that I actually give a damn shit about stuff, including stuff that might be more materialized into uh, maybe like a post George Carlin type of a channel, like that kind of thing. That's kind of what this. That's kind of what my channel is becoming. That's kind of what my channel is for the most part. Is a post George Carlin, a post kind of like a post George Carlin, and like that's kind of what my channel is. Like a post George Carlin / whatever. Like I'm talking about the stuff he would be talking about. Only I talk about stuff that George Carlin would talk about, but I'm putting more of it. But I'm putting more of a. But I'm making it more like a YouTube friendly environment. But like I'm like George Carlin in a way where I'm not going to child proof anything. But at the same time, I'm creating my own thing. So it's like a callback to the George Carlin days, or a callback to whatever is in my worldview, or like in my world, and I shave it down to make it more raw and real. That's what the channel is. It's more of a raw, real, uh, very gritty, and you know I need to announce a lot of elephants out of the closet to and I almost need to address things that would be elephant coming out of the closet material, when it comes to certain things. So the next time anyone looks at my channel, the next time my dad or anybody looks at my channel, you're gonna see you're gonna see my channel in a way where, like now, more than ever, that my channel is actually kind of like the Bible in a way, where there's stuff in there that would confuse and alter and and bring back around to. I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to make my channel out to be the Bible, but it's kind of the same principle, right? Where it's all gonna come out, it's all gonna be addressed, and it's all gonna be great stuff, that just happens to have a dark edge to it, you know. And this is at 39 whatever seconds, and I hope the next time we do something in here, it's not as vile as this. But what I want to put out is that this is an elephant pulling out of the closet. You know, this is like an elephant. This channel has stuff in it most channels on YouTube wouldn't have. You know, actual, um, honest, Bible esque things in it. Bible esque, and and above all, really good, really wholesome, and just, you know, hilarious in its own way, stuff. Uh, I guess you could call me the scientist stuff. I guess you could say that, you know, in a science, and I'm just rambling on now. Uh, so Ramblin' Brendan is gonna get off this channel. So Ramblin' Brendan is gonna get off here, and until I do something else, may the force be with you. And until we meet again, as Roy Rogers and Dale Evans would say, and as Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and as Roy Rogers and Dale Evans has rightfully said, happy trails to you. Until we meet again.